Hey everybody, happy Friday. How's it going? What's up? How's everybody doing today? Welcome to the Age of Quarantine. My name is David Castillo. I am your host, and I'm also the head talent buyer and part owner of Saint Vitus. We're going to be joined shortly by the one and only Nika Danilova, aka Zola Jesus. So we're just waiting for her to get on. Cheers, everybody. Oh, I think this is Nika right now. Let's see here. Okay. Boop. Zola Jesus underneath here as it loads. Oh, there she is, full and in effect. Nika, how are you? How's it going?
Good.
Yeah,
I'm nervous.
no, yeah. You know what? I feel like maybe I am too because my social skills are eroding.
Oh, I don't have any to begin with, so we're on the same
There,
page.
there you go. So thanks for taking some time out today to join us. This is the Age of Quarantine again. Thanks to everybody who's been supporting St. Vitus vis-a-vis our Kickstarter and all that stuff. And we got an hour with Nika, so I'm going to start with the same. It's going to fly by. We're having fun. Look, I opened a beer. We're good.
I was like, what stone should I be for this? So
As you know what? There's no rules. We're here. We're in our homes. Whereas, yeah, we're good.
I'm cogent. I'm cogent.
That's all that we need. So the first question I've been asking everybody is, where would you be if you weren't at home today? And where is home as well?
Wisconsin right now, home.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to be in LA recording my album, and then in New York continuing to record and finish my album. So
we have new Zola Jesus in the works.
Yeah. So I was supposed to be working.
Can you divulge who you were going to be working with in either of those cities?
Yeah, do you know?
No, I don't. Mm-mm.
Yeah, you do. But first of all,
No, I don't.
I have this, my phone is on a tripod and it keeps slowly Ken Burnsing down. So I'm just going to keep nudging it every now and then. Yeah, so I'm working on my new album with Randall Dunn.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. And he came out here for a couple days, or for a week, and we did some pre-production and really broed down, and it was cool. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
So, just for people who are out there who might be wondering about Randall's background, he's worked with a lot of bands like Son, and most recently he did the Mandy soundtrack. If you guys have heard the Mandy soundtrack, and Wolves in the Throne Room, just
let's not
powerhouse.
forget master musicians of Bukkake.
And let's not forget master musicians of Bukkake. So Randall's an amazing producer. What kind of spurred that hookup for this record?
I met him and 2 years ago or something. And it was funny because we were both living in Seattle at the same time, but I didn't know him, or I knew of him, but I had never met him when I lived there. So we just met up in New York, and we're both really into a lot of the same stuff and really connected. And so then when I was thinking about my next record, I felt like the process has been kind of different than usual, and I just felt like I could trust him with it in a way,
Yeah.
And so far it's been incredible. He's already brought so much energy to the album, and it's just going to be really magical.
That's great. That's awesome. So we're going to just kind of start at the beginning. We're going to take a little musical roadmap from you from the beginning and kind of start there. And what's kind of interesting about yourself is that you are yourself. I feel like a lot of these interviews that I've had have been with people in groups and in bands. And so, I'm always just thinking about that. I'm very interested about this sort of personal journey. So let's talk about the earliest like kind of memories and times of music. When was the first time where you were like, I'm listening to music. I'm listening to music on my own, and I'm really starting to gravitate towards it.
My first like so I'm knitting while talking to you. I hope you don't mind, but
no, that's tight. No, this is a hang. I'm getting fucked up while I'm talking to you.
Yeah, we're hanging. I'm hanging.
Mm-hmm.
This is every day. This is life now. So
I love it.
So I feel like a big breakthrough was in terms of finding something where I was like, wow, this is new for me, is
mm-hmm.
having listening to David Bowie for the first time. I was like 9, 8 or something, and I heard Changes, and it really got to me. But then growing up, like I was really fortunate because my dad was like a new wave guy. So, he had seen like Dead Kennedys live back in the day and was really into Talking Heads and Oingo Boingo and like, Squeeze. So, I kind of grew up like with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, it was kind of easy to be like, oh, what else is there like this? And then, finding stuff from there.
And where was growing up? Was that was in Wisconsin as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this very land.
Yeah, because you're back there now, so this is kind of a very full circle kind of vibe. So as you were growing up and stuff like that, and you were like, oh, okay, cool, like I'm finding myself drawn to music. When was the first time that you started kind of exploring your own capabilities and stuff like that? What made you want to participate?
I was one of those fucking singing kids, like one of those annoying ass kids. You know what I mean? Like, everything's a song, yeah. I'm cute and small and you will listen to my song. Like, I was one of those annoying ass kids. So I loved singing, and that's how I entertained myself, like running around the woods and living in like this musical or whatever. So then I started taking piano lessons and then violin lessons, and then finally I found a voice instructor. So that was like my earliest foray into music. In that regard, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So it was just kind of this early age and you kind of just felt it like inside of you, and it was just coming. Because I feel like for a lot of musicians too, it kind of turns into, a group of friends or an older person around them, and then like they get involved in some sort of scene or something like that. For you, what were kind of like your earliest like times where you started participating in music? Like, were you ever in a band? Were you ever doing anything like that?
Yeah, so I was,
the teenage years.
Yeah, okay, so first of all, I'm a millennial, right? I don't know how old you are, but,
I'm 37. I'm right on the cusp.
Okay.
Depends on who you talk to.
Get some of this, but just, hang tight.
I'm trying.
So, I did the talent show. I did Mbop at the talent show in elementary school. I did sometimes the Britney Spears song at the, you tell me you're in love with me. That. And then, middle school, did the Battle of the Bands, did the talent shows, did that circuit. And then I started finding a scene of like street punks. So then in high school, it was like street punks and like people into Neurosis and shit like that. And so that was kind of my like into weirder stuff,
Yeah, that was kind of like the kids you hung around with, the crew, hanging out, listening to Neurosis and doing different things like that. And then when did you just, start trying to make your own, music and trying to perform and figure out what this entity that Zola Jesus is? Because that's different from Nika, right? So when did that start? Or maybe it's not. I don't really know. I'm here to find out.
I mean, I'll say that like it's a concentrated version of me, but like, I think the Zola Jesus project is more serious than I am, because that's like my core. But on top, I'm I'm just whatever. I'm knitting.
She's a hang. She's a good hang. That's what it is, honestly. Chantan.
But yeah, so having that opera upbringing made me very self-critical, because that's what you're told to do as a classical musician, is to criticize every aspect of what you're doing and make sure it's perfect. So I really didn't like singing in front of people. I had a lot of stage fright, really bad. So it wasn't until I got into stuff, or I discovered stuff like Daniel Johnston or Moondog or like Wesley Willis, you know, or even Diamanda Galas. And then I'm just like, oh, cool. You don't have, like, it can just be whatever. Like, it's okay if it sounds like shit. It's better. It's better if it sounds like shit.
Yeah.
So then I got just really into making stuff sound bad. And then that's how I was able to find my voice through the noise. And then it got to the point where I'm like, oh, I can take that noise away now and confront my real self-hatred because I'm old enough to deal with that, you know?
That's so succinct that, like, it's hard to even follow that up, but it's very succinct. And I think that's something that you always have to do. You kind of have to, like, learn to live with yourself and, like, kind of who you are as, like, an artist, and, like, how you sound, how you are, and sort of be like, at a certain point, this is me, right? And so what I think is interesting about that is you were talking about how, you know, this formal training was sort of like this blessing and the curse. From a technical perspective, it gave you, like, these tools to, you know, fly around and you know, hit all these amazing notes and do these things, but you felt that constraint. So when you found this sort of fun stuff, you were like, oh, okay, like, I can kind of unlearn some of that. Was that kind of what you were feeling? Like, I'm going to take the Snapcase record title, Progression Through Unlearning, right? A little bit?
Well, totally. And getting into punk, like, I really got into punk as a teenager more than, like, I didn't know Joy Division was goth. I thought goth was Marilyn Manson. Like, I was into, like, Dead Boys and Teenage Jesus and the Jerks and you know, whatever, shit like that. And that sort of got me into feeling like, oh, okay, yeah, like, it's cooler if it sounds like, the worse it sounds, the better it is to my ears, you know? So so that gave me confidence to do that.
And so, yeah, a lot of the earliest stuff, I mean, you made that all completely by yourself, correct? 100%. You are out in the woods doing it all, which is, to me, I find this super fascinating because, you know, again, like, most of my experiences, I grew up on Long Island, New York hardcore scene, stuff like that, you know, linking up with people constantly. And I always was, like, mining these different things outside of myself. And then I look at you and you're like, it seems so much more internal.
I mean, I think everything's internal at some point, because this may be off topic. I mean, like, my high might be setting in, but, like,
no, let's vibe.
I think it's cool.
I'm settling in too.
Okay, I think it's cool if, like, how you know, you're born as whoever, you're born as this blank slate, but then the decisions you make and the things that you're drawn to shape who you are. And so, like, you know, I love Britney Spears and I love pop, but then when I discovered, like, the emotional, like, power in like punk and industrial and noise and experimental music, like, that innately brought me, like, it innately just, like, felt right to me. And then you meet other people and you're like, holy shit, like, my mind would be blown to meet you right now, like, if I was 14, and just be like, you know all this shit too, like, oh my god, you know. And I think that's, you had that going for you, where you had more people where you could be like, oh, like, these people know what's real, you know, what's up. But yeah, I guess I just had to dig a little bit more, but, you know, internet.
Yeah, and I that's, to me, that's really interesting, because that accessibility is kind of, I feel like we're probably around the same age, and it was like at varying different levels. You know, for me, once I first got into, like, college, that's where, like, the internet more as we know it sort of, like, really happened. It changed everything. I mean, I listened to stuff I was so regional in my tastes, and which is cool, because it's also, it was next to me. I could, like, participate in it. I could go, oh, all right, cool, let's go to Coney Island High or CB's or something. I'll take the train and, like, sneak back into my mom's house.
Like, so, you know, I went to a high school where the only, like, alternative people were pretty much, like, street punks. And so, you know, we'd be, like, trading, like, punk core samplers and talking about, like, oh man, I'm gonna go to Chicago to see Casualties or whatever, like, you know, like,
the Virus. Jasper, what's up?
I know, what's up? That blew my mind that Jasper was in the Virus.
Yeah, that was amazing. It blew my mind too.
I've never had like a starstruck experience, or you know, when you're like, oh man, if only my 13-year-old self knew. It's like, man, if only my 13-year-old self knew I was friends with Jasper.
From the virus, like I'm losing it right now, for sure.
I love it. Yeah, but
Shout out.
yeah, you know, Liberty Spikes, yeah, YOLO. You only have Liberty Spikes once.
Hopefully. So then, so yeah, like it's interesting. I feel like sometimes when you don't have everything at your disposal like that, though, I feel like there's a hunger that kind of builds up, and then you want to go and keep exploring and keep exploring. When did you start leaving, Wisconsin, and then obviously, you've traveled all over the world. It seems like you've lived a couple of places. When did you start kind of, you're like, okay, I'm going to go to other places. I'm going to feel other things. How was that? And how did that kind of like aid your musical progression? Were you still living in Wisconsin when Canadas came out? No, right?
No, I was in LA at
You were in
that
LA,
point.
right?
Yeah, yeah. So it was before I started Zola Jesus, like is when it really sort of congealed. I moved to Milwaukee for a year, and then I was able to go to like shows and go to go to record stores. What the There's places that sell these things. And then meet people, and then get into like the experimental scene there, and then I moved to Madison, and then I really got into it, and really like my musical journey really blossomed there. So then by the time I got to LA, I was already like too far gone.
Yeah, you were driving. So what did that move that you said to Milwaukee? Why did that? What was about that time period that was like, I'm making Zola Jesus. I'm going to create this thing for myself as a vehicle, and then go. What about that time period was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to switch this on now.
So that was when I was in Madison, and I was hanging out with a lot of musicians, like and I was dating a musician, and it was just really easy to be in spaces where there were people making music, and so I finally felt like, I had gone on that journey of like studying classical, rejecting it, being very being very self-critical, and then not singing or not making music at all, and then slowly opening up. And then by the time I got to Madison, I was really feeling, not necessarily confident, but I was feeling the alchemy start, and so I started just messing around and recording things and feeling very creative. And then it just, it just like, I don't want to say I've been waiting a lifetime for it, but this is something my whole life has been internally, passionately dedicated to. So to be able to have a vehicle for it was just like let me do, finally, like, let's do this. I've been doing talent shows all my life for this shit.
Dude, you missed me in the auditorium down in fucking, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, come on. High school end of year, whatever, pop concert.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, for me it was the senior talent show, like that was the big benchmark. I sang Rage Against the Machine.
Man, at that talent show, what are you doing, man?
Who am I? But so that's really it's just interesting when like an artist starts to like really like become, right? Like at a certain point you have to think, you know what, I can fucking do this shit, right? Like I can do that. In a way, it's interesting how you got so beaten down in this sort of lane with the classical stuff, but in a way it kind of pulled you back to give you a voice in this way. I find that really interesting. And so you go there, you start making canadas and stuff like that. What were the first shows like?
No, not good. Not good. They were just like, my very first show, I don't even know if music was happening. It's one of those things that's such an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
It was me solo, and I have the worst anxiety, like the worst. Not sure anything even happened, but I got up there.
I mean, something happened.
Something happened.
It really is kind of like this very like lucid dream kind of thing sometimes. And I wonder that too, because you're on your own, so you're like, I'm going to do everything by myself, and you can't even really be with those feelings that much, right?
Yeah. I mean, at some point I finally got a band, and but it was the kind of thing where it's like my ex-boyfriend was in the band, God bless him. He's a great guy, but you know, we were all young then. But he was like up front playing guitar, like doing his like, you know, solos, and I was in the back on the keyboard, and I'm like, wait, these are my songs. Maybe I should be more in control of like what's happening here. But I just didn't have confidence at all. And so I was just like, cool, if he wants to shred, I'll just hold it down back here and whatever, you know. But at that point, yeah. So it was a process of me gaining confidence as a performer too.
Mm. And that's a really big, you know, trial by fire. And we're talking, you know, this is, you know, more than a decade worth of progression, you know, like to everybody, you know, sitting at home and listening, you know, I try and, you know, kind of tell folks and stuff like that from the inside and out. You know, I've seen performers a lot. I've seen you perform a lot throughout the years, and you see development, you see progression. You know, people don't just become like this as much as people think so. So when did you start feeling, now that you mentioned, like, when did you start feeling like I'm stepping from here to here now, and I'm gonna kind of like really establish myself and take control? Because to be honest, for me, when I see you play, I'm like, this is like this small woman with this enormous presence. I feel like you almost grow. You're like Shaq by the time you're done.
Thank you. Well, I don't know. It was a long process of really doubting like the whole live thing, covering my voice in reverb, like pacing back and forth on stage, you know, having a hard time defining what I wanted. And then things started moving faster than I could keep up in terms of like my own emotional readiness for it. So the music started getting more attention, and which was of course very validating and awesome, but it just triggered all those anxieties in me. And I think every young musician goes through that period of being like, this is something I do in my bedroom. Okay, wait, now I'm playing South by Southwest and have to put a band together and have to learn how to, you know, impress record labels and stuff. And you're just like, damn, that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. But
and it has a lot less to do with artistry as well at a certain point, right? You're like, I made this stuff, and now I have to contend with like making the art go and like move, and then playing it live and going all around the world and playing shows and stuff like that. So there's a lot of pieces to these puzzles, and you know, as a solo artist too, it's like you have a lot to, you know, be mindful of, especially the aesthetics that I think you've always had, you know, really strong aesthetics that weren't oral aesthetics, but they're also visual aesthetics. How did that sort of start playing out too? Like finding this, I don't want to call it a character, but a persona, I guess, you know? And how did you, you know, from album to album kind of shape those sorts of things?
Well, I feel like I'm not alone in any of this. Like this is all just what a lot of musicians go through. But, you know, music is, it's self-serving. It serves as an outlet for me to be able to, you know, go through my own shit and all, but also inhabit a space that feels magical and that feels powerful. And music has always been a place of power for me. Music is such like a automatic, visceral release of what I'm feeling. Like I said, I've been singing ever since I was a child, and so when I sing, I feel like I'm in control of whatever. So I think just by nature of like how the project unraveled, music is that place for me to give me that sense of power and that sense of autonomy. And so it made me feel a lot stronger than I was, because I'm very small. I was bullied as a kid, like super hard. I went through a lot of self-hatred and still struggle with it. A lot of doubt, a lot of anxiety. And so, but when I was making music, I could let go of that and become not a different person, but to become the person that I know that I am inside when all that shit gets, you know, when I'm strong, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Like you kind of wear that a little bit, and that's
totally.
And visually, like clothing and everything else like that. I mean, I know you're behind like all of those decisions, you know, as far as presenting Zola Jesus in that sort of way, you know, from record covers and clothing and shoots like that. How did you sort of develop that side of it, right? Because like when you're in your bedroom and you're knitting and you're singing and you're hanging out and you're like maybe crafting these songs, you're not really projecting that sort of stage vibe or look or things like that. When did that start really coming into play for you? Was that always intertwined with the vision of the songs, or?
Yeah, I'm actually, honestly, I think I'm more of a visual person than I am a musical person. Like, maybe because music now is too embroiled and stuff for me. There's too much, it's wrapped up in too much. But there's a sense of play that I get to have with a visual aspect that is really fun. And the music is like my work and shit, you know, but the visual is like, oh, this is like the thing, you know, this is where it can become, that magic can really externalize, and it can become like, yeah, like truly like a visual experience. And then also coming from opera, and just, I like when things are cohesive, everything fits together, everything is coming from the same place, you know. I couldn't sing these songs with all this atmosphere and then just go up there with like, you know, just be like, you know, I don't know, like I couldn't.
Just put on your best flannel and go for it, yeah. You know? Yeah, no, I agree, because I mean, there's almost like a regalness in the presentation of it all, and even in the drama of the songs with all the string arrangements and everything that you bring to it. It doesn't hit you over the head where you're like drama kid who makes like goth music or something, but there is like that sense of drama. I think you play into it, you know, really, really well with that sort of aspect. I wanted to go back a little bit to when you were talking about, you know, just the music starting to be accepted, and you know, you get that a little bit of that external validation. How did you kind of you know, start hooking up with Sacred Bones and like taking that journey? How did that kind of start coming to pass?
MySpace.
Wow, one word. MySpace. Boom. That's it.
Lest we forget MySpace. Oh wow, that was a vibe where you could post something on MySpace and then mutual friend to mutual friend, and now you've got Trouble Man Unlimited hitting you up. You've got D-Stasi Records. You've got Sacred Bones Records hitting you up, asking you to put out a 7-inch.
From New York City?
New York City, the place I dreamed of leaving, this shithole that I end up living in again for. Yeah, so they hit me up on MySpace, and, you know, again, mutual friends and stuff like that, but, and that was awesome.
And so it was just kind of the relationship just started there. And when was it like, hey, you know what? I want to go with Sacred Bones, and I think this is the best avenue for my music, because at that point, Sacred Bones isn't what it is today either, right? So I mean, it was a great label then, but it was also emerging, and I feel like the emergence of the label and there's a synonymous kind of push there.
Yeah, I mean, that was just such a that was such a kinetic time period. There was so much going on. Like, it really felt like the roaring 20s, you know, in terms of like the music industry, and like moving and shaking, and you could get discovered, and like, you know,
coming to Brooklyn, kid.
I can't even fathom that. Oh, I envied you guys so much. But anyway, so yeah, you know, it's like, shout
out to Taylor Brody. Shout out to Caleb. Taylor's up in the comments.
Yeah. The queen. Yeah. So, and more than anything, like, I can't work with someone if I don't respect them. So I guess that intuitively, I just really respected Sacred Bones from the very beginning. When I met Caleb, I was just like, I don't know. He was just like, he's Caleb. Like, we just did some awesome stuff together, and, you know, put my records out, and he was just so kind and generous and caring, and really gave a shit, and who wouldn't want to work with that, you know? So I think I lucked out. Okay, what's up, bro?
Giving a shit, honestly, giving a shit is like number one, right? Like, it's
so rare.
It's rare as fuck. What's wrong with people? But yeah, giving a shit is key. To anyone out there that wants to do anything, give a shit about it first, and then, you know, start figuring it out. I actually have a story about you around that time. I think around that time is when I first saw you, and it was kind of an amazing thing. So I'm gonna tell you a story. I was living down the block from Rubber Track Studio, that was a studio that Converse had done, right?
Yeah.
And so I lived down the block, and one of my friends, really good friends, Steve Dolcemaschio, shout out to Steve, works for Sonos now, but he worked at Converse then. And he was like, yo, Dave, what's up? I was like, I'm in Brooklyn. He lived in Boston at the time. I'm like, yo, cool. What's good? He's from Staten Island. So Stevie D calls me. I'm like, yo, what's up? He's like, yo, you ever hear of this gal, Zola Jesus? She's on like Sacred Bones now or some shit. I'm like, yeah. He's like, yo, she's about to film some shit for the Fader in like 15, 20 minutes. And I'm like, word? I'm like, I'm chilling right now. I just finished booking some shows. He's like, dude, come down here right now. So I pull up, and I'm hanging out, and like, knock on this nondescript door. Steve pulls me in, and I see, Taylor, I see Caleb, see a couple of people, and I hear this woman singing, which was you, and just pacing around and singing scales. And I'm like, wow, that sounds fucking great. And I literally got to see you with 15 people taping like 3 songs. And you had a full band at that time. Yeah. And I was just, honestly, I was blown away. I was like, holy shit. I'm like, this record is tight, but like they really got something on their hands here. I thought it was like really good. Aww. And that's why I was like, real soon after, I was like, yo, Caleb, I'm like, I think Zola Jesus really needs to come play at Saint Vitus. What do you think about that? And I was already making my move, but it was just such a really bizarre way to see an artist in the first way, in like this really controlled environment. I don't know if you remember that shoot, but it was just like, and you nailed it, and I thought it was amazing. It was a wild day. Oh,
thank you. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that shoot.
Yeah, and so that's where I put in the kind of request for that, and I guess a couple years went by, but then you played Saint Vitus for 2 nights, and we had the infamous snow incident, which is of lore. We got to talk about it. So, Zola Jesus plays 2 nights at Saint Vitus. First night, fucking phenomenal show, sold the fuck out. Everyone's vibing. It's just a beautiful show. Weather report comes in. Second night, it's snowing, and it's going to be bad. Yeah. So we had to move the show up, I believe, to 6 p.m. Anybody who could come can come. We made this decision. I watched the show. It's fucking great. 150 people maybe show up.
Yeah, which was amazing.
Which is incredible. I was there.
Yeah.
I was there, and de Blasio had shut down the city way early, like really like, crappy. And the people that were there, I was like, I saw you play, I thought it was over. I walk out, I'm having a drink like I'm doing now. And all of a sudden, I see this young lady here walk out of the bar this way. And she does not go to the backstage, and she walks across me and out the door. And then all 150 people follow her. And then you did a song outside in the snow. Yeah. Tell me about this magic. What were we thinking here?
No, I just sometimes, man, I just do things. I don't know. I just thought it would be fun. It would be fun. And those people that came out, like, heroes, that's awesome. You guys, like, because I remember it was scary. Like, they were making a big deal out of this snowstorm that ended up being absolutely nothing. It's like every day in Wisconsin. But, like, still, like, those people came out, and I just had a lot of, like, gratitude and respect for them. And so I wanted to do something special. And it just felt like a really special circumstance. So
it was... I can't tell you too, like I'm sitting there, and so Nika has everybody circle around her, and she does this song in the middle, and I believe there was somebody maybe with a violin. It was just you and a violin player.
Oh, it was my trombonist, yeah.
Oh, was it trombone? Okay, it was trombone. And literally there were like our neighbors who fucking hate us most of the time were coming to the windows and filming, and there was a sanitation worker that was like plowing the streets, and they stopped, and they were all watching you. Aww. And that was probably the most civil exit of in Saint Vitus history, because it was like we ended the show and then everybody just walked away, like into the snowy, yeah, like nowhere. It was very poetic. I was like, and it's one thing that it will go down in the history books of the venue. So I have to thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was super fun. I will say, my trombonist, I don't know if I give him fair enough warning. And it's hard to, it's like, I guess trombone is pretty hard to play when it's that cold out. So he was really, you know, he's a pro, but I felt that. I was like, man, I'm sorry.
And homeboy had like a little shirt up to here. Like my man was suffering through that, but you killed it. And so it was absolutely perfect. And yeah, definitely something that we, you know, well, it's going in the record books as the only outdoor performance. No, it's cool. Do it when, you know, after the pandemic. We'll do another one, outdoor festival.
All over. Just gonna walk down the streets.
So I want to ask you, just taking it back a little bit towards the records.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you. I read something, and I gotta give love to my compatriot Jen Pelly, who is an amazing writer from Long Island, New York, like I am. And I was just, you know, reading up a couple of things about you and different things. And I was reading some stuff about Okovi, and something kind of struck me, too, is that you felt, I feel like at times, and we touched on this before, is like you've made music where you were kind of trying to prove to yourself a little bit different techniques or things that you could kind of do, right? And so in Cannabis and stuff, you were saying, hey, I'm going to bury this a little bit. Like I'm trying to like figure out like my kind of like goth and punk and stuff. Yeah. When you started stripping that back, what, you know, to getting to Taiga and stuff like that, yeah. What kind of goals are you trying to set for yourself there as opposed to what you were trying to do before?
Well, so just to kind of go through the chronology a little bit, you know, I put out like some singles and stuff, and then I did the Spoils, which was very noisy. I loved it. But then I did Stridulum, and I felt like doing something a little bit cleaner, and then that really took off. So then I started to feel insecure about my own instincts, because my instincts were to do something more like the Spoils. But then when I did the cleaner stuff, people really liked that. And so then I felt really like, oh, okay, they don't, maybe it's not, maybe being weird isn't good. So I correlated the takeoff of Stridulum being like, oh, weird's not good. I'm not good for being weird. So then, but then at the same time, you know, I was very excited, and those songs were just as much a part of me, and I love them very, very much. But that was an aspect of my internal fear and self-criticism. So then I moved to LA, and I'm getting all this attention. There's a lot of pressure, and I was just doing the best I can, you know? I was doing the best I could at the time. Just trying to make a record quickly and do something that I felt like I was proud of. So I did that, but I felt like I was still, Canada's came out and it was successful and everything, but I was still really deeply unsatisfied myself, because I felt like I was still working through a lot of fear and self-criticism. So when I took that time in between Canada's and Taiga, I did this thing, Versions, which was a project with J.G. Thirlwell where he did string arrangements of my songs, and I sang, you know, and it was very clean, like the production was very clean, my voice was barren, but I needed that in order to reestablish my relationship with my voice and with what I'm doing, and to go, okay, I don't need noise to feel good about what I'm doing. I don't need to make this to feel good about what I'm doing. I need to confront my biggest fear, which is that people can actually hear me and judge me, you know? So then I wanted to strip everything away and go, look, like, I need to just be good on my own terms and not good by somebody else's terms. So then I started taking voice lessons again and did the Versions thing. And then when I did Taiga, I really wanted, sorry, this is a long-winded answer. When I did Taiga, I feel like I really wanted to do like a, I just wanted to succeed, you know, and I wanted to prove to people that I could make a great pop record, and I wanted to prove to myself that all those like pop stars that I listened to when I was younger, that like that I could be like them. And then I made it and I realized I'm not like them. So then I had a lot of like, then I had a lot more to struggle with to figure out who am I? If I'm, if I made a pop record and I still didn't feel fulfilled, then what do I need to make in order to feel fulfilled? And so here we are.
But I think that what's interesting is when you say stuff like that, at least to me, I'm like, I see someone like with you, and I just see ability flowing out of you in all different angles. And I just, in my modest opinion, I just feel like it's interesting that you've gone after sort of technique-driven things as opposed to sort of things that were kind of like in here, or how you were matching some of those things up. And I mean, I don't really see like, some wild misstep in there. I see like this really amazing journey to kind of explore like all the nuances of what I think is this like amazing voice, and also all this compositional ability. So why not try it? Why not go there? I mean, there's a lot of people, and I'm going to let you in on a secret. There's a lot of people who can't even do one thing, like, okay, so you're way ahead of the game. And so with that, I mean, I saw that step, and I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, okay, she's going, we're in the fast lane. We're going all the way in this direction, and why not?
I'm an Aries, man. That's what we do. We just go 100% in one direction and 100% in the other direction, and don't look back.
4383, kid. I got you.
Really? You're also an Aries?
All fire, all day. All fire. When's your birthday?
4/11.
4/11, man. Yeah, and Nikki Sneakers this Sunday. Happy birthday to Nikki Sneakers.
Oh, really?
Nothing changes.
She's an Aries too?
She's an Aries too, man. It's all fire. Dude, Sarah Taylor, Aries as well. Look at that. We got this fire all around us. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Man, y'all can understand then. It's chaos. It's chaos. Whatever you want it right now, and it's like, yeah, I can win a Grammy.
Sure, come on. Why not?
You have to make something really good, and then you win a Grammy, right? I want to do that. Okay, I'll make something really good. Wait a minute. No, it doesn't work like that. And you're not, good is subjective. Slow down, honey. Slow down.
I got to get a little bit more tequila because we're about to round it up. Hold on. We're taking a quick, my cube's getting down, but, all this beer ain't great for the waistline. So.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So. I think this leads us to the last work that you did was at Covey, and I felt like, man, like it was everything. I felt like all these technique-driven sort of maybe things that you had in mind, and I see these progressions just as a listener, but it's cool for you to be so honest about just talking about it in these terms, right? Like, hey, I wanted to try this, I wanted to try that, and I feel like
I've had to do a lot of inner work through this process.
I'm sure, because it sounds like something that is more yourself in a way. Like I felt like it was less going for anything. It was just going for who you are. And that's cool to me. What was it like kind of undertaking that record and coming up with the material for it?
I just didn't care anymore. I just didn't give a shit. I was, like I made Tyga, and I had gotten the things that I'd wanted in some ways, I had gotten all like those things that, I like goals. I like setting goals, and then I like trying to make them. That gives me purpose in some ways, So Tyga, like I deeply love that record, but it was just, it had different goals, and those goals weren't necessarily emotional. They were more about proving something to myself. But when I felt empty inside after having made that album and felt like that wasn't what I really needed to do, I'm not that kind of person. I'm not the person that's going to be satisfied if they buy who is at a party or like going to Fashion Week and then being in the same room as Bella Hadid. Like, get me out of there. Get me the fuck out of there. You know what I mean? Like, that's not my shit. I can't hang out with celebrities. I can't do that weird like Hollywood thing that leads to Grammys. So I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to do me and like, fuck everything. So then with the Covey, yeah, I was just like, I'm just going to make a record that I'm proud of. And then if people don't like it, if I don't like it, well, you know, that's the big problem. If I don't like it, then that's a problem. But
I think that that's kind of amazing. It's sort of coming back full circle to what we were talking about earlier, which is like this sort of internal compass that was kind of guiding you in those earlier days, you know? And I think for a lot of people who aren't artists or watching now, it's like it can be pretty crushing to have this sort of prism of opinion around you at all different times. And especially as you're getting more and more popular, you can question your tendencies and the things that make you special, that make you who you are in a lot of different things. So I think that's very reflected in Nokovi, and there's like there's a real like just honesty to it, like a real outpouring that I think you can immediately feel off the record. And yeah, it's a brilliant like statement in that way. So that also coincided with another full circle moment. It's you moving back, right? You moving back home, and I feel like that's almost like a rejection of all that culture that you were just describing. Am I right about that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was living in Seattle and it was getting too expensive. And I was like, where am I going to go? I thought about going back to LA, but sorry, no, I just can't. Like, I can't. People that, I don't know, it's not right. I feel like it's not right for me, you know? So it didn't feel right. And so I just wanted to go home, you know? I just wanted to be, I don't care where I am. I'm depressed everywhere, so I might as well just be with family. I might as well, like, not have where I live determine my happiness and just move somewhere that feels, like, stable and then be able to find my happiness in, like, you know, in my work and in my inner life and stuff. Because that's what I learned with Nokovi, and that's what I'm learning with this record is, like, I'm not someone that's going to win awards. I'm not someone that's going to be very popular. I never was. I was never popular, you know? I was always like whatever, and the weird one who had no friends and stayed in their bedroom all summer long, downloading albums on SoulSeek. But, you know, like, then I'm going to ride or die, you know? Just be you and focus. What really matters to me at the end of the day is, like, my connection with people and being able to connect with people through my music and find meaning in that way, because that is actually fulfilling to me. Not the awards, not the fashion week, not Bella Hadid. It's like, it's definitely like something different.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I really appreciate is when an artist creates their own world and you feel like you can participate in it. And I love that, you know, and I feel like they're at the beginning, I appreciate the growth and, like, you know, you trying to find all these different things at Nokovi, and like I'm in, like, you know, like Zola Jesus and I'm in your Middle Earth. I'm like in there, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate about it is that there's those moments where you're like, okay, this is Zola territory, and she gives me this, and that's the only thing. I can only get that from you, right? Because you built this little world for us to kind of hang out in for a little bit. And even in times like this, where everything seems like madness on the outside, I can, like, participate in that. So I think that's really cool.
Holy shit! Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, how a lot of people feel about your work, and I think as a solo artist, you're going internally all the time. Like, I feel like you have a really good aptitude for how you felt emotionally during all these different times, and that's really cool.
I mean, yeah, it's also like a little pathological maybe, but
hey man,
how do I feel about this? How does everyone feel about everything? What's the feelings of everybody in this room right now? Let's get a gauge.
Yeah, let's do heat check. What's up?
Chill.
We're knitting and we're having a little bit of tequila. It's really, oh, you got some progress going.
Yeah, I'm working on a cardigan, man.
A cardigan?
Gotta stay warm this summer.
I feel like a cardigan's advanced.
It's just no. I'm just making 4 of the same thing and then just sewing them together. It's just squares.
Okay, that's cool though. I back it. I can't.
I want to impress you.
I love it. So we got about 10 minutes left, guys. If you're out there and you want to ask a question to Nika too, we can also put a couple of questions if you use the little question box down there. if you got anything else, and then we're going to wrap it up in a little bit. Um, so, new record. We're in the works. Obviously,
Yeah.
we can't get to Randall Dunn's studio at the moment, correct? We can't go to New York and LA. What are you thinking as far as are you going to try and do some more on your own, or are you going to just kind of wait until you can get into that environment?
I'm kind of liking this hiatus because it's allowed me to work on my side project. So I've been doing a lot of working on my side project. And that's been kind of informing a lot of, I think, the potential future process of the next record. So I've been doing that, and then I think I'm going to slowly start working on the record as much as I can, remotely. But we had a plan, and I don't know, the plan's important, so I want to stick to it.
I think that's great. I think that for a lot of people, they're responding so much to this thing, but staying the course is it's a good thing too. We're willing to wait out here. We're willing to wait. It's good. So let me see about a couple of fan questions that we got over here.
Yes, I want to convince Freddie to do more Former Ghosts. I see you. If only. He is making music again.
Your music is very original. Who are your influences vocally? From my co-host, Chris Enriquez.
Good question. Vocally? Well, I mean, Maria Callas, because I like that her voice is sort of ugly, and I feel like my voice is sort of ugly, but she just, I don't know, I really like, and I like how she dedicates herself to her craft. I learn a lot from her. Other opera singers, Jesse Norman, Leontine Price, I love. Otherwise, I study singers a lot. I study them. I study I got in this Whitney Houston phase where I was just really into Whitney Houston as a singer, and would just I'd try to be okay, what is she doing with her voice in that part of that song or whatever? And I just try to pick it apart.
I love that. Just kind of getting under the hood and trying to figure some shit out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm still thinking. I'm I like this question.
No, yeah.
In terms of other other vocalists, Meredith Monk, Patty Waters, Diamanda Galas, these women taught me. There's this woman named Magdalis who makes amazing music. Anyone that uses their voice, Linda Chirac, women that use their voice in really interesting, powerful ways and exhibit a sense of deep empowerment through how they use their voice. There's this girl Junko who was in Hijo Kaidan. She's one of my favorites. She just screams basically, but it's just so shrill and so piercing. It's beautiful.
Sweet. I got a question in the comments here in saying, would you ever return towards a more Taiga leaning pop sound? Is that something that you think that you could revisit at a certain point?
Yeah, I mean, most of the songs I write are I feel like I feel like my process is very poppy, and then I basically have to try to make it less cheesy sounding. So, you know what I mean? I'll come up with a melody that's oh. Yeah, I have this one song. It's I've been waiting, I'm waiting on the sidelines. I've been taking my time. And I'm just damn, Brittany.
Dude, I'm here for it.
Yeah, come on, let's go.
I'm good, man.
There's too many people doing that shit. Whatever.
Yeah, no, that's it's really interesting though that if that's where it starts though, that's an interesting part of the process. Is it usually like that too? It's you just start humming some sort of vocal line and stuff, and other things come kind of after that? Is the vocal kind of what sets the scene?
Usually I'll know a song is good once the vocal comes, otherwise it's just, to me, it's just chords.